running in London's West End. We have in store for you on After 9 this morning with Jane. She's joined by Claire Rayner, and they'll be looking at some of the hundreds of letters which they received following After 9's special Women's Health Week. The response has been overwhelming, and this morning Jane and Claire will concentrate on queries about infertility, depression and phobias.
But one of the stars of that outrageous comedy series Who Dares Wins is currently appearing in one of the most unusual stage shows to hit the West End. It's called The Mystery of Edwin Drood, and it's the audience who decide how the play ends. Sounds confusing, doesn't it? And apparently it is. Julia Hills joins us this morning to tell us all about it. Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't understand how it works. I mean, how you can possibly have a West End play going on about which the end could change.
Well, the thing is, you see, because it's based on Dickens' novel, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, which he died before finishing, there is no ending. You actually get to a point in the story where there is no more. So lots of little threads have been set up during the show, and we turn to the audience, and the audience have to choose certain characters to play certain parts. So the structure of the show remains the same, but it just depends who's going to play which part that changes.
Sounds like that game Cluedo.
Yes,
We've done it. Anyway, look, Richard went to see it the other night.
I did go to see it the other night. Yes, it is a little bit like that game Cluedo in a sense, isn't it? I must say, I very much enjoyed it. The critics don't seem to have done though, Julia, do they? They haven't been too kind to you.
Apparently not. I haven't actually read them, I must say, but I gather that they've been sort of a bit mixed. But that doesn't matter because the audiences are loving it.
But the impression I was left with was that there weren't half a dozen different endings, but that you had one, and that you hyped up the ending just a little bit to finish with the one that you wanted that was easier.
That's not true, actually. I mean, yes, lots of people say, "Oh, come on, you've fixed it. It must be fixed," but it isn't. Every night we've had different murderers. To try and explain, it's not just the murderer you choose. You also choose a character called Datchery, who's an investigator. You choose a murderer, and you also choose a pair of lovers to have a happy ending, you see. So all these different characters can play any of those parts, and so if you get chosen for Datchery, you can't be a murderer, but you can be a lover. But if you get chosen as a murderer, you can...
So you find you're playing a different role?
Well, I'm not, because I play Edwin Drood, who actually disappears, and it's really what happens to Drood that you have to solve. This all sounds very confusing.
So
it's much clearer when you see it.
At what point do you die? Do you die at the beginning and just lay on stage for the rest of the play?
No. It's not just about Edwin Drood. It's actually about a music hall, a British music hall in 1892, putting on their version of Dickens' story, The Mystery of Edwin Drood. So, like, I play two characters. I play this actress, Alice Nutting, who is like the Vesta Tilly of the music hall and is the male impersonator, and she is playing Edwin Drood for that evening. So you sort of, even once Drood disappears, Alice Nutting's still around. Her story continues.
It's done very well on Broadway, hasn't it? It was put on by Rupert Holmes, of course, who's the inspiration behind it, starring Ernie Wise and Lulu. Must say, I was also delighted for Ernie Wise. I saw it as something of a triumphant second coming for Ernie.
It is, it's great. He's very good in it, and he's having a good time.
Actually, Dolph Lundgren is with us this morning. While you're over in Britain, are you going to get a chance to go to the theatre? Because theatres are doing all well at the moment.
I know. I hear they do. It sounds very interesting. Sounds like Hollywood. I mean, the plot sounds like the life I live.
It sounds like
my everyday life.
Well, then you'll understand what's going on.
I take a vote every afternoon.
Have you done? We were talking earlier about how you were going off to Boston to be an undergraduate in chemical engineering. A graduate in chemical engineering, and you sort of got waylaid and decided to go into acting. Have you ever done stage work?
No. I started studying method acting in New York, and that's the only reason I gave up my academic career and my athletic career was because I liked acting. Nobody was there with a boatload of money saying, come on to Hollywood and do this part. That happened later, like 8 months later.
If you've got the sort of intellect that could have made you a chemical engineer,
yes.
Do you find acting fulfilling enough for you, academically?
Yes, I do. I think that it all depends on how you approach it. I tend to be involved I'm producing a picture as well in Australia, and I tend to be involved in all aspects of the industry, so I do get the fulfillment that way, yes. I think acting is very challenging. I think people tend to underestimate actors.
Yes.
And I think that to be a good actor, you really have to do a lot of reading, a lot of research, and you have to be very sharp.
Yeah. Actually, Julia, do you find that? Do people think it's easy?
I think so. I think it's one of those things that a lot of people think, oh, I could get up and do that. I mean, and a lot of people, I suppose, could, but there's a difference between doing it for fun and actually making a living at it and sort of sustaining it.
That's the hard bit.
Yeah.
Versatile you have to be to play an Edwin Drood, of course, don't you? If there are really 6 endings.
Yes, we do.
Sounds very silly. You have to go again another night.
I will, and find out who's the
6
mad one
times,
that
in
occasion.
fact.
Stand up and lobby for a different ending. We'll be talking to our guests a bit more in a moment, and also to Gyles Brandreth. We'll take a short break, though.
Imagine the great taste of muesli in a biscuit. McVitie's have McVitie's Natural Choice Muesli Cookies.
This nose belongs to Sniffer, the world's best sniffer dog. Yet when this strange object appeared in his home, he couldn't find his bone anywhere. In fact, it's a new liquid air freshener, Airwick's Magic Mushroom. It's a little more attractive than the average air freshener, and it helps keep the whole room free from household smells for up to 4 weeks. You can even see when it runs out, which left Sniffer searching high and low. Airwick, you need never be dogged by smells again.
If you'd like to clean those hard-to-reach back teeth, either get a flip-top head or get a Reach toothbrush from Johnson & Johnson.
Well, again, it's 8:42. If you were with us around about 8:30, you'll have seen Wincy telling us how awful the weather was going to be today. It's going to rain for the most part, and isn't he a clever boy? Look at Gyles.
Exactly.
Look at
This
the
is
jumper.
it shows I don't think about it the day before. I just get up in the morning and open the 3 rooms that contain the jumpers, walk through and say, what am I going to wear? And today I'm wearing my brolly jumper.
Well done, Gyles.
It was either that or my He-Man outfit I've got.
Yes. Before we go any further, shall we introduce you to
Well,
Dolph Lundgren?
Dolph, I have admired Dolph for years.
And
My-
Julia, of
My
course.
wife has got some rather candid
years.
photographs of Dolph. and
Oh,
haunts me
they
with them.
surfaced, have they?
Because
Oh,
I
no.
too want to be. I want to be a bit like Dolph. I don't know where the accent comes from, but the whole manner.
Scandinavia, really.
Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Magnificent specimen and a
Wow.
beautiful mind to go
Can
with
I
it.
speculate you're also a great admirer of Julia's?
Julia. Now this show actually is enormous fun because it's got pantomime, musical, thriller, all combined, and one of the great, I think, stars of dressing up in other people's clothes since Vesta Tilly. She's brilliant. It's enormous fun. It changes every night. It's a great adventure.
You've been to see it, have you?
I have. I loved it because, of course, I got the hots for Lulu. Because you and I hadn't met until that stage. But Lulu and I are like this.
Oh, yeah.
In here,
Yes.
of course. Because
Only in there.
absolutely.
Yes.
Nice, wholesome family person. Indeed, let me speak to the wholesome families of Britain. Good morning, United Kingdom. Before we launch into Postbag, we've had a quick news item concerning a burglary in a general store in Andover last night. The thieves stole snooker balls and French perfume. The police, of course, are hoping for a good break, and they'll have their tracker dogs on the scent. Well, that pithy pearl came from 13-year-old Kevin Lavery of Maidstone in Kent, who writes, "Don't worry, my home's only 30 seconds from our school, so I won't be late for assembly." I'm pleased to hear it, Kevin, and thank you for the news flash, though I have to tell you the competition is now over. The prize has been won. But I do want to squeeze in one last item of news sent in by Mrs. K.M. Parker of Ashford in Kent. This is a real story, spotted by her in the Daily Mirror. A gunman who stole £450 from a building society in Guildford, Surrey, dropped his haul as he fled, only to have it handed back to him by a well-meaning passer-by. Well, there you are. Who says the age of chivalry is dead? Katie Roberts of Bromsgrove does. British men are the pits. They're loud, rude, and smelly. I mean it. Well, I'm sure you do, Katie, but are you prepared to substantiate your claim? Oh, you are. My boyfriend, Jake, is typical. He thinks he knows everything. He hasn't the least idea about courtesy, and he stinks. His body odor would make a skunk smell sweet. I don't know why I love him. Frankly, nor do I, Katie, but is Jake typical? Sally Ann Thompson of Trowbridge is another lady who feels British men leave a lot to be desired. Men no longer open doors for ladies, no longer give their places up for them in trains and on buses, no longer stand up when they enter and leave a room. The old world courtesies have disappeared, and I think life in Britain is the poorer because of it. Well, there you are. From courtesy now we turn to crime, and a thought-provoking letter from Eamon Reynolds of South Shields. In discussions on crime recently, I've noticed people referring more and more to certain particularly nasty criminals as being evil. I think this is dangerous. It suggests that some people are born evil, and there's nothing that can be done about it. We all are born with a mixture of good and evil in us. We have free will to decide to do with our lives as we please, and we should all be held responsible for our actions. The word evil has certainly cropped up in the reports of the trial of Klaus Barbie, the wartime Nazi currently facing charges of atrocity in a much publicized trial in France. Viewers have mixed views about the trial. Mrs. K.H. Carpenter of Doncaster writes, "It is very wrong to stage this show trial of Klaus Barbie. It must be hateful for victims and survivors of the Holocaust to be reminded yet again of the horrors of the war, and it is a great mistake to give this man a platform on which to parade before the world." On the other hand, Harry Levine of North London says, "The Barbie trial may be a circus, but it is one we should all watch as a stark reminder of the depths to which some humans can sink, and as a lesson to all evildoers. Justice will pursue them to the ends of time." Well, do you believe in evil? Are there some people who are fundamentally wicked and have evil in them about which nothing can be done? Actually, rather major questions. But if you think you have answers, you know our address here. It's Postbag, TVAM, Camden Lock, London NW1 8TQ. Actually, some people can't wait to write to us. They phone up. Mrs. Duro of Ipswich called yesterday about our lineup of Marilyn Monroe lookalikes. What a travesty! None of them looked a bit like Marilyn, who was a true original. This sort of thing is a desecration of her memory. Well, we haven't had them in the studio, but we have also been talking about Clark Gable lookalikes, or rather, people who might play the Rhett Butler role in the sequel to Gone with the Wind. Mrs. Henshaw of York has an interesting suggestion. Martin Sheen would be perfect in the Clark Gable role, with Edward Petherbridge in the Leslie Howard part. And though very different, I think Meryl Streep might be equal to succeeding Vivian Lee.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Don't you think like any of those ideas? Well, now, of course, now we met we've got Dolph and Julia. What a perfect combination. And I think maybe I could play the Leslie Howard part.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think you could actually.
What do you
I think
think?
Edward Petherbridge is, it's just too whimsy-ish.
Too whimsy-ish at the moment, certainly. Very good. Mrs. Payne of High Ongar in Essex has sent us a snapshot of her husband, who everyone says is the dead ringer for Clark Gable. What do you think? He's a bit, isn't he?
He is, yes.
And let's move swiftly from the sublime to the ridiculous. From Farnham in Surrey comes Mrs. Linda Booker's boy, who is apparently a Giles Brandreth lookalike.
Yes, he is.
Well, at least he is wearing one of my pulleys. There's time for just one more. This picture is Mrs. Julia Day of St. Ives, Huntingdon.
Oh.
Yes. And according to Clive and Betty Swindles, who sent in the picture, not only does she look like Anne Diamond, in person, her actions and facial expressions are almost identical.
Poor thing. It's a bit much to have that sprung on you at this time in the morning,
She's
isn't
a
it?
thing of great loveliness. We've also had a lot of people saying how much they like it when you do your big eyes. So, yeah, that's it. Oh. Dolph and I are recovering.
Yeah, well,
Richard can't really recover. He's a terrible
watching our
state.
Make
I've
Big
got
Eyes at
some
Dolph
more
all morning.
lookalikes,
Oh, have we?
some wonderful lookalikes, which I'm preparing for you. Thank you for sending them all in. I've got the most magnificent Joan Collins lookalike. And anyway, I'll show them to you. I'll prepare them for you over the next couple of days, and I'll show them to you over the next couple of days.
Any more? Do send them in as quickly as you can.
Any more, yes. It doesn't have to be like Clark Gable anymore. I mean, anyone that's, interesting. Lookalikes we are into very much at TVAM at the moment. We've had a couple of Richard Keys lookalikes which weren't funny at all.
No, I can guess what they were, Anne, without you telling me too much more about them. Were they behind cages?
More or less.
Yeah, I thought they might be somehow.
Yeah, actually, I was wondering if Dolph had heard about this, because Hollywood has announced that they're going to make the sequel to Gone with the Wind.
yeah, I read about that. The woman, I guess, was commissioned to write the novel for a long time or so.
That's right, and it's taken them this long to sort out the copyright, because there was a big copyright problem following on from MGM, who owned the copyright, or something like that. Anyway, they've got it all sorted out now, and they're looking for a Rhett Butler.
It's funny because we shot the interiors of Masters of the Universe were shot at Laird Studios in Hollywood, where the original was shot, Gone with the Wind. And the front of the building, the mansion, is still there.
Gosh.
Which is it's neat, when
yes.
you every morning you drive in for work and you see that big mansion there. It's kind of.
It's funny, we were talking
piece of
about
history.
Marilyn Monroe earlier being one of those legends that you never forget about. Whatever you thought of her, she's one of those people that's part of our heritage. So too is Gone with the Wind and the making of that movie. Incredible.
Incredible.
Who are your heroes and heroines, Julia?
Goodness. Heavens. Well, I like, my heroine, I suppose, is Judi Dench.
Oh yeah, she's lovely.
Because I just think she's had such a terrific career, and she's done so many different things and done them all well. He's very good.
What about in the comedy stakes, though? Anyone particularly, or would you always regard comedy as something you have to forge ahead in your own way? You don't model yourself on anyone, or?
I do. I mean, I admire so many people. I think anybody who's got the nerve to get up and be funny, and particularly people who do their own stand-up act and sort of are on the cabaret circuit. I think they're all
prepared to take the rotten
Can't beat
tomatoes.
Harold Lloyd. Still the funniest Harold Lloyd. I was just noticing there how blonde Dolph is. Because when we were doing some research into Marilyn Monroe, we came across a survey which said that 68% of men prefer blondes, genuinely do.
Well, I was just about to mention that.
Because they perceive them as being more vulnerable and less intelligent. And curiously, because Dolph is such a hunk, if we hadn't known that he had all this academic background and things, you would have perceived him as being a great, big, brainless, Swedish hunk.
Why
In fact, it turns out
that?
to have the mind of Einstein.
Well, this is what I was saying to Dolph earlier, isn't it? That in a way you are the victim of female chauvinism because people tend to introduce you as a great hunk or something.
Sure, like
And they sort of go,
we saw this morning.
Which was my point. You must be the hero of many, many, many ladies. Is it difficult?
Well, I don't think about it like that. It's just work for me. I'm trying to live a normal life on the side, and eventually.
why do we perceive blondes as dumb?
I don't. I just think that it's a natural reaction, kind of a defense mechanism in people. When they see somebody who's handsome and good looking, they tend to at least say to themselves, well, I'm sure she's stupid anyway, so I could impress her by talking astrology or something.
No, I think it may be that men and women are different here. I mean, it's the men who are going for the blondes. The women, according to the surveys, no disrespect to you, because you are incredible, are going for the Woody Allen type. Providing you've got,
do you think that's
apparently, yes. I mean, you've got to be funny and have a little bottom. That's what
Well,
What have you got, Gyles?
Well, I think as they say, fall between the number
one of them.
He's got a small bottom then. He must have if he falls
Actually, I don't know if that's true. Let's know what you think on that one. I think it's a highly controversial subject, but a very interesting one. To see whether you think prefer dumb blondes and why they're dumb. And
my wife's blonde.
Is she dumb?
Well,
we better take a break.
Let's take a short break.
Back in a moment.
Here am I, about to abandon myself to pure pleasure. I know I shouldn't, but just the thought of pot au chocolat made with real chocolate, double cream and almonds, or with coconut, or with hazelnuts, makes me think, why not? Abandon yourself to pure pleasure. Pot au chocolat from Chambourcy.
We asked some housewives to test the new Rylida Super Mop. They were obviously impressed. Then they noticed how easily it cleans and gets into all the nooks and crannies.
It gets into all the nooks and crannies.
And how quickly it dries the floor.
It dries the floor much quicker than my mop.
But 4 weeks later, when we went to collect our Rylida Super Mops, they'd been so taken by its amazing drying properties, they were a little, reluctant to give them up. The Rylida Super Mop, once dried, never forgotten.
Pay the gas bill, change the baby, write a book, pay the baby, change the... Oh, a blue lion.
Why do it the hard way, Pam? Gyrobank will save you postage and keep you up to date with frequent statements.
So that's the way to do it.
National Gyrobank. Bill paying simply more convenient.
What rhymes with convenient?
Don't miss your Star Pack TV times this week. Emma Samms and the men in her life. Stars of Soccer, it's the Cup Finals again. There are more big cash prizes to be won in our exciting family game Starlines. £5,000 has already been won by Linda Franklin. You too could be thanking your lucky stars this week with TV times.
Hello, go in 8:54. We have Dolph Lundgren with us. We have Julia Hills as well, who's starring at the moment in the West End in The Mystery of Edwin Drood. An awful long way removed that from the comedy show Who Dares Wins, Julia. Was it a bit difficult in a sense to change gear again, change direction again?
Well, not really. I mean, good fun for me to have something so different to do. Although in a way it's not that different because it's still funny and entertaining and such like. But it's more of a family show than Who Dares Wins, I suppose.
Yeah, Who Dares Wins did get a bit Yeah, the borderline
think so?
sometimes.
Do you think so?
Upsetting it was.
Oh,
sometimes.
really? Oh, no. Oh, dear. I'm sorry.
Actually, we were talking about cartoon characters. There was that lovely Who Dares Win sketch of Superman, wasn't there?
We had all the cartoon characters sort of sharing a flat.
I was thinking of the little boy who was in the hayfield. You remember the film? You must have seen Superman, Dolph.
Yeah.
The little boy's in the hayfield, and the combine harvester's coming towards him.
That one, yes.
And in the real Superman, of course, he swoops in and gets him and rescues him. In Who Dares Wins, the boy gets churned up into the combine harvester and comes out the other end with legs and things sticking out of the hay. Oh, it's horrible.
Made you laugh?
Yes, it really did, actually.
Well, why didn't Superman help him out? What happened?
Well, no, it was meant to be a trailer for a film that is a convenient way of getting rid of sort of nasty American children, actually, in movies. Those are the kinds that sort of always in the films and always are terribly nice and blonde.
Doing it to your
film,
parodying your film, I'm sure.
Hey, if it's successful, I don't care what happens.
Where do the ideas come from, Julia, in a programme like that? Who Dares?
Oh, all over the place. We have a team of writers working constantly, bringing up ideas, and we have discussions, and they I don't know, really.
Do you contribute as well?
Yes, well, I'm not one of the script writers, but we all read all the scripts before they're ever performed and sit around to talk about them and throw in ideas and contribute, yes.
And Dolph, you mentioned you were working on something in Australia at the moment, did you? What's next for you?
Well, next I go to Cannes in about 3 hours.
That must be awful, the prospect of...
I know, yeah. Boy, I don't even know if I want to go. I mean, all these starlets down there, and they're all trying to make it, and nobody listens to them, and I thought maybe I should go down and see, I could be kind of a patron.
Actually, what do we talk about people going to Cannes, and swanning around going to nightclubs, but what is it meant, what are you meant to be doing when you're there?
I don't know.
I think you've got a good idea and you're not going to tell us.
I'm publicizing my film. I'll tell you when I come back.
Tell you what, it's
Masters of the Universe.
Yes, probably a lot more fun than chemical engineering, isn't it?
Yeah. I was up at MIT for a while, for a couple of weeks.
Is that Massachusetts Institute of Technology?
Yes. That's quite a good school. I had a great scholarship there. My parents were very, very excited. And I already started studying acting in New York. And I saw all these test tubes all over the place. And I figured, wait a second. I don't want to spend another 4 years here. And I said no. So I went back to New York, and that's how I started.
You badgered Sylvester Stallone, didn't you?
For the part of Rocky IV.
Pardon me?
Part in Sylvester Stallone, you were putting pressure on Sylvester from the very early.
Yeah, they turned me down first. I was too tall for the part, so I had to kind of approach Stallone a little bit on the side through friends of mine. So that's the business, If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will.
I was just going to say, that's right. You might find one or two in Cannes doing the same to you, Dolph. So you should never forget.
And talking of our lookalikes competition, if any of you are Dolph Lundgren lookalikes, if you'd like to write in with your phone number and a photograph of particular interest to us here, to us dumb brunettes. Anyway, thanks very much, Dolph, for coming today. It's great to meet you again. And thanks very much to Julia, and best of luck with Mystery of Edwin Drood. Not that it sounds like it needs that much luck, just needs a few critics coming around to their senses.
Right, absolutely.
And now over to another...
No.
Rincy.
What was MIT again? I thought that was really fun.
I thought it was great. Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
Oh, we all knew it,
to say without your teeth in.
Right, good morning. It's all right up in the north of Scotland this morning, apart from being a bit chilly. Northeasterly wind, fairly fresh one at that. It's going to keep going throughout the day. It's pushing the rain that's been up there overnight down into the southeast of Scotland, into northern England, and into certainly central and eastern parts of England, and there's a lot of heavy rain about. Later on this morning, 1 or 2 brighter intervals may creep through, particularly in the southwestern corner. Fairly brisk westerly wind in southerly parts. By midday, the top temperatures are nothing to write home about, really. We're well below the sort of temperatures we should be getting for this time of year, but we're paying for the tropical heat wave we had a couple of weeks ago. We've got 16 in the southeast, more sheltered areas, but really it's not going to feel like that with all the rain about that's remaining this afternoon. 1 or 2 brighter intervals, a mixture of sunshine and showers in the central area of Scotland, but a risk of a little bit of hail down the eastern coast. Northeasterly winds, still pretty chilly. That's it for me today. Have a good and see you tomorrow. Anne.
Right, and Jane is here too.
Hi, good morning to you.